to talk sports. It's Hacksaw's Headlines, a panorama of the world of sports, stories, comments, and opinions. Now, here's iconic sports talk show host Lee Hacksaw Hamilton and co-host John Riley.
Who wants to talk sports on a Thursday? We do. From the DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Center studios in San Diego, we welcome you to our Thursday Hacksaw's Headlines podcast. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Lee Hacksaw Hamilton in the Upper Adirondacks in upstate New York near the Canadian border. My co-host John Riley is with us from our studios in San Diego, and we welcome you to what will be a phenomenal podcast as we kick off this great sports weekend. Our podcast is brought to you by DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Centers, 9 locations to serve you in San Diego. If you've got projects, they have materials. If you need ideas, they can be your consultant. DIXIELINE Lumber, your best friend. John Riley, good afternoon. Hope you're having yourself a great day, going towards a great sports weekend. How dare you wear a short-sleeved shirt where I am 33 degrees this morning, and we had hail that piled up on the front patio at my cottage in the northern Adirondacks near the Canadian border. It's absolutely frosty. How you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm in San Diego where we only have one season. You've got 4. So good on you. But I'll tell you, this has been an emotional week for Southern California baseball fans, not to say anything but the NFL and everything else.
We're going a lot of different directions. Just a couple of business items. Item 1, when we're done with our podcast and we talk about the topics on the table, you take over this podcast. We call it Fans Forum. We want you to look and listen at what we're discussing, and then we want you to join us. First-time callers, long-time listeners. That's talk show lingo. Jump on board into the chat box. John, how does it work?
The way it works is if you have a question or comment in the world of sports for Lee Hacksaw Hamilton, just drop your take in the live chat on Facebook, X, or YouTube, where we're live streaming. We already see the practicing guitarists, David, Greg, Michael, so pile in. There's a lot to talk about, I'll tell you what.
Did you say pile in or pile on? I bet we'll have some of those comments too. Item 2, if you like sports, I invite you to check my website. That's the address right across the top, LeeHacksawHamilton.com. I write on it every day, even while I'm supposed to be on vacation. You get the best 15 minutes in sports. You get Hacksaw's Headlines, written version. You get my one man's opinion column, and then you get Hacksaw's mini poll. Check the website every day. Do it in the morning. You won't believe the volume of information we have. Also, when you go to the website, there's an orange box in the upper right-hand corner. And I'll almost guarantee you, if you join Hacksaw's Insiders Group, we will convince John to buy shots of bourbon for everybody that's in the Insiders Group when we hold our first party.
Yeah.
So join Hacksaw's Insiders Group. The other item, invite you to share. Tell everybody what we do at this podcast, the Monday bonus podcast, the Thursday podcast. Make sure you tell them what we do and subscribe, because when you subscribe, you get the alerts to everything we put up on the YouTube channel, and we try to do a lot of that during the course of the week. So that's the business at hand right now, and we got topics on the table. Buckle your seatbelt. In some cases, put your helmet on. Don't throw anything at the laptop, the computer screen, the TV screen. But we got topics on the table to talk about. John, get us going.
Okay. I mean, it's got to start with the NLDS, Dodgers, Padres. Lee, you're missing out on all the hysteria right now this week.
Oh, there's hysteria where I am right now. I mean, this has been an unbelievable series. This has been state-of-the-art series. They're drawing over 6.5 million viewers per game. Some of it baseball, some of it big controversy. We've had big innings. We've had big bullpen performances. We've had big blow-ups. We've had big emotional outbursts on the mound, on the field, in the dugout, and with the media. My goodness, what a phenomenal series for the whole nation to see. Here's the question. Did smart guy Mike Shildt do something stupid, asking Dylan Cease to pitch on 3 days rest when he's never once in his career pitched on 3 days rest? And Dylan Cease was coming off a struggle of 82 pitches and just a shade over 3 innings in the last start, and he never got through the second inning in this start, and the Dodgers climb back into the series. I'm going to give you a bunch of different angles to this equation. Mike Shildt could have started Martin Perez, well rested. His ERA with the Padres after coming over in the trade was 2.75, fairly trustworthy. If he struggled early, you could have yanked him. You could have flipped this thing into a bullpen game because they got the depth to do that. You would have had Cease on normal rotation, Darvish on normal rotation. Could have been all hands on deck if you had to go to a game 5. Instead, he started Cease, and Cease looked poor. He looked as bad this start as he did in the first start against the Dodgers. Now, they do have Darvish. Darvish is a great insurance policy. Now, the flip side of that is the Dodgers went bullpen day, and I thought that was curtains. I didn't think the Dodgers were going to survive with bullpen day, but they pitched exceptionally well. They used 8 guys in 9 innings, and that was pretty impressive. Only thing that kind of strung me out was the Dodgers' decision from either Dave Roberts or the analytics guys, or maybe both, that they would go to their closers early in the game. Michael Kopech pitched in the 4th inning, and that's your 100-mile-an-hour closer. I was really stunned at that, but none of those guys on bullpen day had a stressful outing at all. So now we're going to game 5, and this is going to be fascinating. You got Darvish, and you got Perez waiting in the wings if you have to. I don't think they would touch Michael King in this game, because if they win game 5 on Friday night, they turn around and they're going to have to play game 1 of the National League Championship Series. So you're keeping King in reserve. Here's the intriguing thing is the Dodger decision that's coming. The Dodgers supposedly, Yash Yamamoto and Jack Flaherty threw bullpens yesterday during that game. They're ready to throw on Friday night if need be. But the Dodger Brain Trust, John, is talking about using the 8 guys they used last night, using them coming back on 1 day's rest, 1 inning apiece, and none of them had stressful innings. They might make the Friday night game another bullpen day. And you say, well, why the hell would you do that? Because the Padres against those 8 guys, those 8 relievers, are hitting 165 in the series. Against those 8 guys in the bullpen brigade, 2 runs in 20 innings against them. So the Dodgers have kind of a unique choice to make here. But this has been a phenomenal series. I mean, you got every type of strange play, what Profar did, what Tatis did, what Machado did on the ricochet ground ball off the umpire. He threw Ohtani out at home plate. And then obviously you got the tantrums, the Walker Buehler situation. I don't know if you saw it. Buehler lost his mind in the dugout the other night after all those misplays in the field. And Buehler came back with fire in his eyes and actually pitched pretty damn well, but he tore the dugout apart. And then you got the whole situation with Ken Rosenthal on the media and what he wrote about the Padres, which I thought was cheap shot journalism at the wrong time of the season. If you want to write that about Machado and Tatis, Manny being Manning or Tatis acting like a peacock, you can do that. If the Padres got knocked out of the playoffs, these guys played bad. Why would you do it at this point in time? Now the Padres refusing to talk to him, and he doesn't even go near the Padre dugout. It becomes a all-Dodger broadcast, which has offended a ton of people in San Diego. I mean, this has just been so many creative storylines along the way. And speaking of tantrums, aside from what Buehler did in the dugout, I don't know if there's been much of a story. When Dave Roberts came out to talk to Buehler late in that start the other night, and Buehler just looked at him and told him, "Get the F off my mound. I'm finishing this." And Buehler, he finished really, really strong. So, John, there's an absolute ton of topics on the table. You just tell me, did smart guy Shildt screw up? What's the sentiment back in San Diego? And if you want to talk about who, if you were king, who would you pitch Friday night? San Diego, who would you pitch Friday night if you wore Dodger blue? John, the table is yours.
There's so many, like you say, so many storylines on this. you look at the social media, especially the responses on your Instagram page for Lee Hacksaw Hamilton. Dodger fans, Padre fans, for some, it's the end of the world. And then the next day, they think they're going to win it all, and it's flipped back and forth so many times. This is why we love sports. And this is why it's always great to go to a decisive Game 5 or a decisive Game 7 because it's all on the line. This is great. First of all, the Dylan Cease decision, you can second guess that. Martin Perez is not as good as Dylan Cease, at least on paper. But, Schill was sort of damned if he did, damned if he didn't, depending on who he chose to start that game. But in the end, it doesn't matter when you score 0 runs. I mean, you've got to put some runs on the board. But I am just loving every minute of this. Now, here, let me ask you this, Lee. One of the big criticisms of Dave Roberts is that he doesn't handle his pitching staff well, especially in the playoffs. But it sounded like he did a really, really good job in Game 4. I mean, what do you think?
You raise a really valid point. And what did I say last week about my critique of the Dodgers? That they were, I think the word I pulled out of the dictionary was passive. That why the hell is Mark Prior sitting next to Dave Roberts in the dugout while his pitchers are struggling? Whether it was Landon Knack in an earlier game or whether it was Buehler. And what happened? What happened in that Buehler game? They went out to the mound. And what happened last night? They went out to the mound multiple times early just to talk to pitchers, to settle pitchers down, to remind pitchers what they had to throw. They managed the pitching staff a lot differently in the last 24 hours than they have prior in a long period of time. So I don't know whether that comes from Dave Roberts, whether that comes from Mark Prior, whether it comes from Hacksaw making a statement on the podcast, but the Dodgers changed the way they did their business with the pitchers. And I think you have to, especially if it's young guys and young guys are scuffling. You need to go calm them down, settle them down. And they had not done it in the past, but damn, they did. They did it on Wednesday night when they desperately needed to make sure everybody was on the same page and everybody was settled on. Did you get that idea too?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they figured out like a strategy, a winning formula. And, you bring in Kopech, in the 4th inning or whatever it was. I mean, that was unusual, but he brought him in at the right time to face the right batters. So to me, I got to tip my hat to Dave Roberts. I mean, he did a hell of a job. The Padres, their bats just didn't work. To me, this felt a lot like certain Super Bowls where it's a lopsided result because there's all of this hype and this, all of these emotions going into the game. And then the minute the game turns one way or turns the other way, suddenly one team is on top of the world. The other one is, down in the gutter. And I think that's what happened last night. I do not expect another 8-0 game in Game 5. I think it's going to be fantastic. All hands on deck for both teams. I mean, it's going to be fantastic drama. And Tatis loves hitting at Chavez Ravine.
What's your spin on what Ken Rosenthal did? Why would you write a caustic, cheap shot column? And I like Ken Rosenthal. Why would you do that at this point and incite the Padres, create this fervor of hate when you got a network telecast to do? You got to be balanced on both sides. Reaction?
Well, first of all, I mean, I think he came out with hot takes, and you're the king of hot takes, so you could appreciate it. But yeah, calling Tatis a dancing peacock and calling Profar the kid that pulls the fire alarm at school and gets away with it. And besides, all the stuff about Manny is like ancient history. Sure. Manny has grown up. He's a mature man. He's very, very different than he was with the Orioles or even in that short time with the Dodgers 5-6 years ago. I think Manny deserves praise for his leadership and his maturity and the way he's handling this, because it's night and day compared to 10 years ago. So Rosenthal should be stroking Manny, in my opinion. But I love the fact that the Padres boycotted Rosenthal from that dugout. Rosenthal is just kind of an odd little duck. I mean, I remember I saw a picture of him, standing back to back with Jose Altuve, and he's even shorter than Altuve. So, you got to give it up. The guy loves sports. He does a good job, broadcasting. But, dude, I mean, that was the wrong take at the wrong time.
I get volumes of emails from everybody, including guys in the media that I deal with. And I had a friend email me because he's checked my podcast out. And he said, do you know where there's a Catholic church nearby you in upstate New York? you need to go to the confessional because you've just violated the first rule of the working media, quote, no cheering in the press box, because I had taken some strong opinions against the garbage that Dodger fans have become. But I also said at the end of my column, it only counts as one win. That Padre victory only counts as one win. And I'll reiterate that now. That Dodger shutout victory last night only counts as one LA victory. There is a game 5, and that is you against Yash, and Ohtani is going to hit, and you got El Nino, and you got La Salsa, and you got the Padre batting order. John, is it Friday night yet?
You've been using that line for the last 2 weeks. Is it Tuesday night? Is it Friday night? This is it's just fantastic. And this is why we love sports. And I mean, think about for how long the Padres have been just utterly irrelevant. And now to be on the national stage facing your biggest rival in a game 5, winner take all. I mean, this is wonderful. But emotionally, I am all over the place on this. I mean, I'm going to have to take a couple of shots of tequila just to get through this game on Friday night.
Well, that, and please understand how many shots of whiskey you're going to buy everybody who's in Hacksaw's Insiders Group when we ever get to that decision. Okay, final question. No confident answer on me here. Who are you starting for the Dodgers? Are you going Yash and the red-ass Flaherty? Are you going bullpen day again today on Friday? And what do you think the Padres, how they respond to who they're going to have to face after what just happened to them?
The red-ass Flaherty. If I were Dave Roberts, I would start Yamamoto. I'd have him on a very short leash. I would think of him more like an opener than a traditional starter because all of those other guys, you get a 1 day off, bullpen, they only pitched an inning. They can come back, and that's the winning formula. Now, as far as the Padres go, Darvish, you got to put your trust in him, but he's on it 1 day less rest too. I mean, it just kills you that Musgrove isn't available for this, but I think you got to go Darvish and Yamamoto, and then we'll see how it develops.
I think the statistic I saw is Darvish has 2 wins against the Dodgers in his career in the playoffs, and his ERA is 2.63 in postseason against Dodger baseball. Oh, it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. Okay, this note goes towards everybody with us on live stream. The chat box is open. You got an opinion on Schilt. You got an opinion on Dave Roberts. You've got an opinion on Ken Rosenthal. You got an opinion on Game 5. Winner moves on, loser goes home. Fans Forum chat box is open. John, just quickly, again, explain for the newcomers, the first-timers, how they join us on Fans Forum when we're done.
Yeah, so you just pile in, or pile on. Go into the live chat, right there where you can make your comments on YouTube, on X, on Facebook, and we can get you involved. Again, more people are jumping in. Dave and Callan and Javi and Chris and Bob and Raul have all just jumped in the last few minutes. So keep it coming. We're going to try to get to everybody.
Okay, we go from that topic on baseball because we got other baseball series that are going on, and some people have already gone home. What's your slug line take on all this?
Okay, upsets everywhere. I can't believe the Phillies got knocked out.
Yeah, let's just do a quick review. Philadelphia stopped hitting. Missing persons report, please tell me where Kyle Schwarber and Bryce Harper and JT Realmuto and Castellanos went to. The Phillies lost to the New York Mets. Here's the intangible. Philadelphia wasted some pretty good starting pitching. Philadelphia's bullpen. This statistic is the one that kind of gave me a black eye. The bullpen in the series against the Mets, 3 bad outings, 12 runs, 16 hits in 3 outings for the Philly bullpen. That's why the Phillies have gone home and the Mets are moving on. New York Yankees. They're really scuffling with Kansas City. By the way, please tell me where Aaron Judge is. Has anybody seen Juan Soto? Those guys not hitting at all in postseason play. And the Yankees just don't look like the same team. Yes, the Yankees have a slight edge over Kansas City, and they're obviously now playing Game 4 of that series. Judge and Soto, please identify yourself and check in. Cleveland in a hole against Detroit. How's this possible? Detroit's young bats just not afraid of where they are and are just swinging free and playing loose. And Tarek Skubal, the Detroit ace, has just been really dominant. Cleveland came into postseason with a team batting average of .238. And right now, I guess the theory is we'll just pitch around the 49 home run hitting Jose Ramirez because nobody else, Quan, Fry, any of those other guys, is going to hurt us. This is a shocker. Is Detroit going to end the series for the Cleveland Guardians, my Indians? So you're a baseball fan, jump on board. John, are you as shocked as I am? Because, Baltimore's gone. Atlanta's gone, wide variety of reasons. Now Philadelphia's joined them on the sidelines, and one of these other guys is going to get extricated from postseason play pretty damn quickly, too.
Well, what's your take on this, Lee, about how certain teams that get the 1 or the 2 seed get the bye for about a week, can rest up, and then they come out and then they don't win? I mean, we saw that in just about, the Phillies got knocked out. It could happen to the Dodgers on Friday. I mean, what's your take on that?
Well, I think there's a theory that you lose momentum. Now, I find that hard to believe because even if you have 4 days off, you can still have hard practices. You can have extended batting practice. You can do all the other things you would normally do on an off day. You got 4 days. The most intangible thing is it allows your pitching staff to take a deep breath. And if they're worn out, if they're fatigued, or if there's an injury issue, you can get them rallied back and healthy. It is hard for me to believe that these teams that sit for 4 days suddenly lose all their momentum. I don't necessarily buy that that's the rationale, but that's what all the baseball purists seem to think.
Yeah, there's a lot of other interesting storylines with these American League teams, too. I mean, that kid for the Tigers that hit that 3-run bomb in the 9th inning, I mean, that was unbelievable. But I'll tell you what, I'm sitting here. I'm a Padre fan, so obviously I'm emotionally connected to the Padres. And sometimes I think, well, if the Padres made the World Series, which is a huge if and then another if to get through the next round, who would you want to play? Would you want to get, revenge on the Yankees, revenge on the Tigers, or would you rather face the Guardians or the Royals? I mean, what do you think, Lee?
I just want to see the Friars go there. I mean, the Padres are the most complete team of anybody left playing. Padres right now are the most dangerous team, especially with the depth in pitching in the rotation and depth in the bullpen. And the Padres batting order plus the bench bunch, any one of those guys can knock you out. I know the Padres are the most complete team. If they don't get to the World Series, I guess part of me is going to be really disappointed because I think it's been built for October, and we are in October, even though it's freaking 33 degrees out here in the Northern Adirondacks. But I would hope the Padres would get there. Okay, John, next topic on the table. We're saying goodbye to somebody really, really unique.
Yeah, Luis Tiant. I mean, this guy, I remember him from the 1975 Red Sox World Series. What a guy.
Came from Cuba, defected. El Senor, they called him. El Tiante, they called him. Passed away at the age of 83. He was a baseball icon. I think of him now, and I think of so many other great Latin American pitchers. I mean, starting with Juan Marichal, progressing through a whole series of others that just captured the fancy of the Caribbean baseball fan. El Tiante came up with the Cleveland Indians, went on to the Boston Red Sox. The guy pitched for 19 years. 229 wins, 172 losses. Get this, career ERA of 3.30. And that was an era of really, really good baseball teams. 49 shutouts over the course of his career. El Senor is what they called him, and he was good. He had the crazy wind-up delivery. He'd come at you from all different angles, sidewinder, over the top. He looked like a windmill, a whirling derby. He was just a unique guy, personality. Everybody I know that interacted with him just thought he was just a fun person to be around. So tough loss there.
Yeah, I mean, definitely in the 75 World Series, I was 10 years old. And to see Luis Tiant do that thing where he turns the back on the hitter and then comes firing, it was just, it captivated me as a little kid. But the more I learned about him, and, he had been in the league for a long time, prior to 1975. And I just love how a lot of these guys from Cuba have defected and have come to America and have had great success. And to think about what they must have had to overcome personally to get here. I mean, whether they came here on a traveling team and then just took off, or they got on a life raft and floated to Florida. I mean, there's a lot of other examples of this, of Cuban players that have done crazy things. But I've just got to say, man, good on you, Louis Tiant. You made a big impact on America, and America rewarded you.
It's so highly regarded in Cleveland and beloved with the Boston Red Sox. So that's a lot of baseball to talk about. One other baseball note, we woke up this morning and the story, John, is just staggering.
Oh, yeah. I mean, what happened in St. Pete, I mean, see these pictures of the stadium, it's unbelievable.
That is Tropicana Field, that was Tropicana Field, Suncoast Dome. It's gone. The roof was ripped off. They said the panels, there was 24 panels, 22 of the 24 panels were ripped off overnight by the hurricane. And when Milton got done, they said the panels could handle 115 mile an hour winds. So they believe that that segment of the hurricane that hit that part of Tampa, St. Pete, had winds in excess of 125 miles an hour. It's destroyed it. And there's damage to the infrastructure where the roof was attached. That's been destroyed. There's no drainage inside, so there's all types of flooding inside. I was told there were 16 inches of rain that pelted St. Pete around where Tropicana Field is. They got a massive, massive problem there. And by the way, the communities have lost their water systems. Tampa, a portion of Tampa, and obviously a chunk of St. Petersburg. So I don't know that they're going to be willing to spend $40 to $60 million to put a new roof on a baseball stadium when you've got all these other infrastructure problems in the Suncoast area that you're going to have to deal with. The first thing that popped into my mind after I saw a close-up video and then still photos of the destruction was Jerry Coleman's favorite phrase, baseball under the sun. I don't know that the Tampa Bay Rays want to deal with it that way, but I don't know that the Suncoast Dome is going to be playable when their season's supposed to start March 27th. So then they may be an outdoor baseball team and have to play at Al Lang Stadium in Tampa or St. Petersburg, and they have to play in the heat, the humidity, and it's really rugged in South Florida to play outdoor baseball. So just a traumatic story there in Tampa.
Yeah, when I first heard the news that the roof got torn off, I was thinking, oh, my God, there's huge projectiles flying in the air. And then I realized, it was just a tarp roof.
Sure.
And then I'm thinking, well, they need a new stadium there. I wonder if they're just going to blow this thing up rather than investing the money to fix it.
Well, the big issue is Tampa has to have a place to play. They have the financing now and the location to build an entertainment district and a stadium on the other side of the Tampa-St. Pete Bridge in St. Petersburg. But the problem they have is that's not going to be built a month from Monday. I mean, that's 3 to 4 years down the road. So where are the Rays going to play next season? Are they going to play outdoors? Will Tampa Bay compete with the Athletics? Are going to play outdoors in the heat of Sacramento next year? Oh, really bad situation there. Hey, you're a baseball fan. We've hit a lot of different hot buttons. We're waiting for you to join us in Fans Forum. That will come up right at the end of this podcast. This podcast is brought to you by DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Centers. 9 locations to serve you in San Diego. You pick the topic. Next project at my house, John, new front door. You did that. But they got so many other things at DIXIELINE Lumber. Just give us a lineup of what DIXIELINE Lumber can provide everybody who's watching us on live stream.
Yeah, well, I mean, they got lumber, they got building materials, they got power tools, they got doors, they got windows, they got cabinets, they've got countertops, they've got all kinds of tools and hardware. I mean, it's your go-to place if you are a homeowner or a contractor and you need to get all those building supplies to build a new kitchen or even to build a custom house.
That's DIXIELINE Lumber. They've got the materials. You want ideas? They'll be glad to help you too as your consultant. DIXIELINE Lumber, your best friend. before we start the second half of our Thursday podcast going towards this great sports weekend, thank you for joining us. John has violated the dress code. He's wearing a short-sleeved shirt. He's supposed to dress the way I am. It's 33 degrees outside of my cottage in upstate New York in the Adirondacks. But we're glad you're here. Hope you'll join us on Fans Forum. Couple of other items. If you like sports, please check my website. I write on it every day of the week, LeeHacksawHamilton.com. And when you go to the homepage, there's a big orange box right in the upper right-hand side. Hey, if you like sports, I want you to join Hacksaw's Insiders Group. Just fill out that entry blank to get on our email list. And a reminder, subscribe to what we do on our YouTube channel. Just subscribe there, give us a thumbs up, give us a 5-star rating, which really helps us a great deal. That way you'll get the alerts every time we put something out. Also, we're all on social media. I know you're on social media. On social media, I want you to become part of my Twitter all-star team. Just go to X, type in my address, my handle, my slug line, at Hacksaw1090, at Hacksaw1090, and hit the follow button. That way, every time I put something up in Twitter, and sometimes that happens in the middle of the night, you'll be able to get the alerts there. John, let's go from baseball. Busy weekend ahead. Lots of stories to talk about NFL football.
Yeah, let's talk about the Jets, Jets. They fired the coach. What do you think, Lee?
I wasn't surprised. First of all, Robert Saleh qualified for that job. He did a great job as defensive coordinator of San Francisco. And he became a head coach, and the first thing he did was fix the New York Jets defense, which they desperately needed. But the other side of the football, they never solved the problems, and that's why he is gone. 20-36 over the group of years there. They never configured how to run an NFL offense. They had Sam Darnold at quarterback. That did not work. They drafted Zach Wilson, Brigham Young. That did not work. They invested in Aaron Rodgers, and it became a big distraction. And he's there, and Robert Saleh is gone as head coach. Now, it's not the only firing. There should be more to come. They just today demoted Nathan Hackett, stripped him of his play calling. He should have been fired, too, because it looks as if he totally lost the locker room there, like he lost the locker room while he was the one-year head coach of the Denver Broncos. I felt bad for Saleh. He'll get a job next year. He'll be in somebody's defensive coordinator next season. It's going to be interesting to see what they do now to rally this thing, because they've just been very inconsistent. Who would think a team with Aaron Rodgers as the trigger man would be 27th in the National Football League on offense, 29th on scoring offense? They're just a mess right now. And the fact that that head coach came on with great credentials and then could not figure out how to solve the problems on the other side of the line of scrimmage, that to me is just absolutely stunning. And where do they go? Well, I think there'll be more firings. I think the general manager, Joe Douglas, is going to lose his job at the end of the season. Then what does that owner, Woody Johnson, do? Because he's been very vocal about his dedication to fix New York Jet football, but New York Jet football hasn't been very good very recently. So I wasn't stunned, disappointed for the head coach, because I thought he came in with good credentials, and I thought there was an initial, immediate, responsive success, and the whole thing got away from him. John?
It just goes to show you how hard it is to be a coach in the league. I mean, obviously he's a defensive specialist. He had great success on the defensive side of the ball, but the dude knows offense. He knows how to scheme against it. He knows how to put together a playbook, but sometimes it just doesn't work, and so it makes you wonder, what are the qualities in a head coach that makes those special ones really special? Because it's not just X and O's. It's not even just necessarily being a leader of men. It seems like there's a lot of other intangibles that make a coach successful.
I had first experience with this with the Chargers. As the voice of the Chargers, I sat there after they ran off Bobby Ross. They hired Kevin Gilbride. Tremendous success as an offensive coordinator with the New York Giants, et cetera. Came in, was a disaster. And then recently, after they ran off Schottenheimer, here where I was, and I thought the hire of Mike McCoy made a lot of sense because he was the hottest coordinator on the open market that year. He was in over his head. So there's some intangibles that you alluded to correctly. You have to be able to check off the box, and some guys make it and some guys don't. Why do those guys fail And Mike Tomlin, who had no advance notice of being anything brilliant, has 17 straight unbeaten seasons with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Going to be fascinating to see where the Jets go to try to pick up the pieces. But I do think, in all honesty, John, there's more changes coming there. Okay, that's the Jets. From that, we'll go to what's going to be kind of an important weekend in Week 6 of the NFL schedule.
Yeah, we'll start off with the Chargers.
Justin Herbert practiced the last 2 days. Ankle brace holding up, no problem. Press conference early today, back in Los Angeles, good to go. Now the burning question, still doesn't have his left tackle, right tackle. Rashawn Slater, Joe Alt, very limited in practice. If they're very limited on a Wednesday and a Thursday, I don't know how you can expect them to take 55 snaps and physically hold up by the time you get to Sunday when they go play Denver. The other unique thing, the Charger team that has no Joey Bosa, still not practicing. This is disastrous. And they're going to face Bo Nix. They're going to face Bo Nix and Sean Payton. They're going to face Bo Nix, Sean Payton, and a defense that's playing really hard for the Denver Broncos. And I don't know if you saw what happened on the sidelines of the Denver game last weekend. Bo Nix got into Sean Payton's face. Sean Payton stalked him down the sidelines when Nix turned his back and walked away from the head coach. And they were barking at each other about Bo Nix calling audibles at the line of scrimmage. And Sean Payton said, "You run the play I call." And Bo Nix, in essence, said, "F off. If the defense is set differently, I'm going to call an audible." By Monday, they had loved, kissed, made up. And Sean Payton said, "I like the spunk. I like the spark that Bo Nix provides." So it's going to be interesting to see how Herbert holds up and what Bo Nix does. San Francisco, Seattle. 49ers are just beat up. They're 2-3. Shanahan taking heat. But at the end of the day, you got so many people nicked up. They're missing a bunch of people on the offense. There is no Christian McCaffrey sighting. That looks like this could be another 4 to 6 weeks. The aftermath of the injection because of the Achilles and the calf issue. Seattle's not the same right now. They came roaring out of the gates. Geno Smith is putting up monster numbers, but the Seahawks aren't doing a good job protecting him, and the defense is just not playing well. So somebody's going to be in trouble in the NFC West by the time we get to Sunday night. San Francisco, Seattle in this game here. Jacksonville, Chicago. Trevor Lawrence is playing save everybody's job in Jacksonville. They're 1-4. He's trying to save Doug Peterson's job as head coach. And Caleb Williams now has stockpiled back-to-back big performances, well over 300 yards passing and almost 400 yards per game in total offense. He is playing really well. So that's going to be a wild game to keep an eye on. Cleveland, Philadelphia. How's that $230 million guaranteed investment working out for the Browns? The Browns quarterback has a 74 rating, highest paid contract in the history of the National Football League for a quarterback, and it's all bloody guaranteed. Cleveland is an absolute mess. They don't have either of their tackles. They got problems in the secondary with concussions again. Just absolutely disgusting. Last week, Deshaun Watson's offense, 212 total yards in offense. 26 sacks in 5 games this season. Now, Philadelphia, hot and cold. I don't know which Eagle team's going to show up to play the Browns. Jalen Hurts throws for yards, runs for yards. Jalen Hurts turns the football over. Eagles are just not the same football team right now. Fascinating game. Washington and the kid, Jaden Daniels, against the Baltimore Ravens and their big boy football offense and defense. Lamar Jackson's got 9 touchdowns, 1 interception. Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, the running back. What a hell of a combination that's turned out to be offensively. So I guess I'd say this is a litmus test for the Washington Commanders. Pittsburgh Raiders. Raiders are benching Gardner Minshew. I'm tired of Antonio Pierce's mouth. Love me not, going to do this. This is the way it's going to be. 15 minutes later, he changes his mind. Antonio Pierce might be the next guy that gets fired, maybe at the end of the season. But they're changing quarterbacks. The Raiders have no run game. There is no Devontae Adams. He's hurt. That's a distraction. He wants out. Poor Tom Telesco. He's got his hands full dealing with all the trauma and the distractions as Raider football. Pittsburgh's got the quarterback, and they're not going to change. Justin Fields remains there, but Steelers got a lot of guys hurt. Steelers got a problem with the Devo wide receiver also, and that's not a good situation. George Pickens has become a bit of a punk, and he's not producing, and he's always unhappy. I don't know whether it generalizes what wide receivers in the NFL have become. They're all problem children psychologically. You got that. And then you got Detroit, Dallas. You got Jared Goff against a doomed Dallas defense that's got so many people hurt. They've lost 6 defensive linemen, and they still got problems at linebacker and in the secondary. So Goff may go crazy for Detroit. And Dak Prescott is carrying this thing by himself. You know, people might be upset at Dak because he does not do well in postseason play. But, I mean, he threw for 392 last week. So that's going to be an intriguing game. So, John, those are the hot games that we just posted on the board. Go ahead, pick a couple. Give me an opinion.
Well, for the Jaguars, I'm curious because just a few years ago, they knocked out the Chargers in the first round. We were singing the praises of Doug Peterson. We thought Trevor Lawrence arrived. But now suddenly they've really stalled as an organization. I mean, what do you think is behind that?
Well, I think there's a lot of pressure on Trevor Lawrence, and I don't know that he's flamboyant enough to carry a franchise by himself. They've had injuries at wide receiver. He played at Clemson, Lawrence did, and they brought their running back with him, Travis Etienne, and he missed one season with a knee injury, came back and played really, really well for a year and a half, and he's kind of MIA again. He's just not the same player. So they've got some issues, and I just don't think that quarterback can carry that team. And the owner's getting impatient. I mean, they're 1-4. If they lose this weekend, 1-5, I think Peterson's in big, big jeopardy.
Yeah, I mean, imagine if this game was going to be in Jacksonville after Hurricane Milton, because I think it's going to be in London, you know, the Bears and the Jags, right?
Yes. So
okay.
They escaped that, luckily. What do you make of the kid, Jaden Daniels, against Baltimore's big boy football defense?
I'm loving everything about Jaden Daniels because he's, again, it's like the coaching situation. You can look at a guy on paper, you can look at his skill set and everything, but there are intangibles that you never expect that can define success from failure. And Jaden Daniels has that magic touch. So I'm just thrilled that the Washington football team is relevant again because it had been so long since they had.
You're an NFL fan. You got an opinion on some of these topics. With apologies in advance, we do sports talk the way it should be done, and you get the chance to participate. Jump into the Fans Foreign chat box. Just give us an opinion, some of the NFL storylines you have hit. And if that's not enough football, that comes Sunday. What's going to happen on Saturday? How about these games?
Oh, yeah. We're talking about Texas. We're talking about Ohio State and Penn State. Let's get that board up for you there, Lee. Tell me, break it down. So
many upsets last week. Yeah, I bet on your bingo card you had BYU and Iowa State ranked in the top 10. Don't freaking lie to me. Anyhow, that's where we are in college football. Texas at Oklahoma. Is this an ambush waiting to happen? Now, the Sooners are not right now what they've been in recent years, in part because Dylan Gabriel, the quarterback, is gone. Texas has had injury problems at running back. Arch Manning has stepped in and done a great job as the quarterback in place of the injured Quinn Ewers. But the Longhorns are going to, they play with their hair on fire in Austin. But now they're going into Norman, Oklahoma. And they're going to play not only the Sooners, the Sooner Schooner, they're going to play as freaking 82,000 fans.
Wait, is it the game in Dallas at the Cotton Bowl?
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So this game is still going to be hard because half the tickets go into anybody wearing Oklahoma red. It's going to be a great game. Second game, Ohio State. The Buckeyes, who play really well at home, won't be at home. They're going to Autzen Stadium in Eugene. They think they're going to cram 66,000 into that football stadium to see the Ducks against the Buckeyes. I'm a little bit surprised. Oregon, with Dylan Gabriel, the transfer quarterback, has not put a ton of points up on the board. And I just don't know what it is, whether it's too confined a passing game that's not deep down the field with big plays, but it's more methodical, and have not scored the way I thought they would. And, of course, they've got a lot of new people with that new quarterback. Ohio State's got Will Howard, and that guy's a 50-year starter. He's a transfer from Kansas State. They move the football. They got a brilliant wide receiver in Smith. They're really deep at running back, and they play pretty physical football. And I'm just wondering if the Buckeyes are going to try to pound it and just keep Dillon Gabriel off the field. But this game has been circled on everybody's calendar since the schedule came out in the spring. Ohio State at Oregon. And then the third one is USC. USC is going to host Penn State at the LA Coliseum. Nittany Lions have got a young quarterback who's a second-year starter, Drew Allar. They run the football. He throws it occasionally, and they move the ball down the field, and they play good defense. And I will say this, Miller Moss plays with great guts, great courage. He's a firebrand competitor. They got Woody Marks at running back, who's gotten progressively better as the season's gone on. But do the Trojans have enough defense? Because Penn State, they will pound it and they will throw it some. That's going to be a good game. That might be a lower scoring game than anybody expects. I do like Miller Moss as a starting quarterback at USC, but he can't do this thing by himself because he doesn't play defense. So that's fascinating. So those are the big three games on the college football schedule this weekend. So
I was just reading that, what's his name? Quinn Ewers, the quarterback for Texas, is going to start in this game. I mean, what's your take on Ewers versus Arch Manning? I mean, what are the strengths and weaknesses of each of those two QBs?
Well, Ewers has got a year and a half experience. I mean, he did a really good job last season. But Arch Manning's pedigree is winner. And when he came in, he put together back-to-back really impressive performances. I think he had a 320-yard passing performance in, I think, his second start for those guys. So, I mean, Sarkisian's got a national power here, and he's just built this thing, and he's become, as a head coach and a recruiter, he's become a magnet to get throwers, runners, and speed wide receivers that want to go play in that system. So they've done a good job. I think Texas is going to take out Oklahoma because I don't think Oklahoma's got the explosiveness that we've known Oklahoma football for before.
Yeah, it's going to be great. I mean, you know, my son went to Oklahoma, and he's living in Dallas now. He just moved from Houston to Dallas, and all of his buddies are all converging there in Dallas for this game. I mean, it's going to be fantastic. In the other two games, though, I'm all in on the Pac-12 teams having success in the Big Ten. Oregon, in this case, USC. I'm hoping I'll be rooting for them to do well, but I don't know. That's a tough hurdle for both of those teams.
I think it's a real tough hurdle for Oregon. I just don't think we've seen Oregon under Dan Lanning this year be as dynamic as I thought they would. When they got Dillon Gabriel initially, I thought, holy cow. He's rung up phenomenal numbers at Oklahoma and prior to that at Central Florida. And I thought, oh, he's going to go up and down the field. But they're just not scoring a lot of touchdowns. Now, they've got a running back. His name is John Jacobs, who had a huge game last week for the Ducks. So that'll bear watching. But I do think the Buckeyes, who are so big and so physical, and Ohio State's got a really good defense, I think they're going to slow Oregon down. So you're into college football? Hey, that parking space got your name on it. Join us, Fans Forum, if you got a comment about college football. Last topic on the table. Hey, John, it's cold. It's the opening of hockey season.
Hockey hotline, dial them up. Here we go, Lee. Start the season.
Okay, let's just go a lot of different directions. LA Kings open their schedule tonight. They open with a big road trip. They start in Buffalo. Must-win season. Must-win season, I think, to save the general manager's job, Rob Blake. They've got unbelievable guys who can score goals. They're paying him volumes of money, and these guys have never gotten beyond the first round of the NHL playoffs. So I think it's going to be huge. Quentin Byfield was a number one pick a couple of years ago. Spent a year and a half learning on the job with the Kings after they brought him up from the American Hockey League, and he's played really well. He had a 21-goal season last year. Does he take the next step forward? But they got snipers all over the place. I mean, you look at that Kings lineup, and you say, how the hell have these guys not gone far in the playoffs? But they got Kopitar and Kempe and Fiala. And they don't obviously have Drew Doughty to start the season with the fractured ankle, but they got a young defenseman, Brant Clark. They got Philippe Danault, who came from Montreal. They've got a lot of guys who can score goals. They just have to score goals. I think the only if is what are they going to be like in goal? Journeyman Darcy Kemper, who was in LA at one point and bounced around, is back. I'll be fascinated to see if the Kings are a complete team or is there a weakness in goal. But they got to go deep in postseason, I think, to save the general manager job, Rob Blake. The Ducks open their season on the weekend. They're going to be in San Jose. They've been building and building and building, and this has been so painful. The Ducks in the last 2 years, John, have a composite record of 50 wins, 97 losses, and 17 losses in overtime. The Ducks have won 50 games out of the 164 they've played in 2 years, and they force-fed their kids. They got 10 guys under the age of 23 on this opening night roster. They got a lot of talent, but these are young pups who've learned, played under fire, had really back-to-back bad seasons. I mean, I've been on hockey teams that I broadcast for that lost 50 games, and that's a miserable experience. So that bears watching. Is this the year the Ducks take the next step forward? And they got a kid that you got to watch. He's from Boston University. His name is Connor Gauthier, or I should say Boston College. And he came in a big trade. And this kid's got talent. This kid is coming off 2 weeks of very impressive performances in exhibition games and in practice, and he's going to play a lot for them. So they've got all these kids stockpiled. The other team that opens, they're going to open in Toronto Saturday and Sunday, talking about the American Hockey League, the San Diego Gulls. Once upon a time, this was one of the best minor league franchises of all. But in the rebuilding of the Anaheim Ducks, the Gulls have been caught up on the wash. And all the high draft picks the Ducks had, we thought were coming here to play at the sports arena, Pechanga Arena, with the Gulls. None of them got here because the Ducks put them up top, and they force-fed them. And it's been very painful in Anaheim, which meant it's been very painful down here for the dedicated hockey fans. And I think San Diego's a hell of a hockey town. John knows this because he drinks beer, sits behind a plexiglass by the penalty box and pounds on the glass and sits with the women. The Gulls have gone into the marketplace through the Ducks. The Ducks have brought in 6 veterans of the American Hockey League who played also in the NHL. Got a goaltender just came in from Las Vegas. His name is Oscar Dance. He is going to be the starter in goal. They've got another big stud defenseman. You look at their roster, and I was out at practice. You look at the Gulls roster, they're all 6'3" on the blue line, 6'4", Noah Warren. Keep an eye on that. Watch for him because he might not be here long. He might be in Anaheim. He's the next of the big tree defensemen. They've got a Russian who scored 50 goals in junior hockey last year, who defected, who came on board and played in the Western Hockey League. His name is Igor Sidorov. Guy's a bit of a sniper, and he's crafty. He's not 6'3", but he can fly. He's got a wide variety of shots, so keep an eye on that. So we'll see. They've got the 6 veterans that stabilize your roster. These guys have had tastes in the NHL. These guys have been pretty good top-line performers in the American Hockey League, and they'll be complemented by a bunch of young skaters. So this will be fascinating. Hockey's back. My O Canada Network people are allowed to participate, if you will, but that's the West Coast update on the Kings and the Ducks and the American Hockey League San Diego Gulls. And, of course, the season started just last night, and some shockers along the way, including the Edmonton Oilers getting beaten home and the Toronto Maple Leafs losing 1-0 to the Montreal Canadiens, and Vancouver blowing a 4-1 lead to lowly Calgary and losing on home ice. So a lot of puck to talk about. John, your turn.
Yeah, here we go. I have a couple of questions. First of all, when you have been following hockey forever and talking with all of your other contacts, where do most experts think the Kings and Ducks are going to finish? And then the second question is, what happened to Evander Kane? I saw an update in your best 15 that he was hurt and he's injured. So what's the latest?
Evander Kane of the Edmonton Oilers, who's a goal scorer and their second and third line guy. He's had a lot of problems off the ice. He had sports hernia surgery in the offseason, and he's on long-term injured reserve, which means he's probably going to be out maybe a month, maybe 2 months, depending on the rehab, et cetera. But it's more than Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. That's a very good hockey team, and they've tried to add some veteran goal scoring to complement it. But Kane will not be part of it. In terms of the Kings, I think the guys nationwide and across Canada who write about this every minute of every day have the same opinion that I have, that Rob Blake's done a good job resurrecting the Kings. But the Kings have to find a way to go deeper in the playoffs because they played 3 straight years in the first round against Edmonton, and they went on vacation after the first round against Edmonton. Ducks are not a playoff team, regardless of what the general manager, Pat Verbeek, says. They're building. I do hope that we're going to wake up one morning within the next calendar year, and all these kids are going to surface simultaneously, and they're going to be pretty good. But to learn on the job, I mean, to have 10 guys under the age of 23, that's asking an awful lot of young kids against a league of stars.
Yeah, just think about it. The Kings and the Dodgers, both in L.A., both getting ejected in the first round of the playoffs.
Oh, it'll be tough. All right. Those are the topics on the table. We do sports talk the way it should, and the way we do sports talk invites you now to join us on Fans Forum. This podcast is brought to you by DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Centers, 9 locations to serve you in San Diego, and the new one that's opening in Orange County. John, do you think there's a few people out there? Do you think they're dressed like you or they're dressed like me who want to talk sports?
Oh, there's a ton here. So let's get everybody involved. Let's go to the practicing guitarist, Lee John. Schilt's decision to start Dylan Cease in Game 4 was ill-advised. His 2 prior starts against LA were terrible. The decision will cost the Padres the series. No way this team wins Game 5 in LA.
Only thing I can react to you, practicing guitarist, that Dodger win, the 8-0 win, only counts as 1 game. And you got Yu Darvish starting. I would like to hear from a Dodger fan. Don't throw anything at the computer screen. I just want a Dodger fan to tell me who you start on Friday night. Do you go with a combination of Yash, Yamamoto, and Jack Flaherty? Or do you make it another bullpen day because the Padres have not hit against those 8 guys who threw in this playoff series in last night's game? I think it was a major decision. And Schilt has hit every hot button for the most part correctly. I just don't understand why you would shortchange Dylan Cease. His heart was in it. But like I said, he threw 82 pitches in his last start and got knocked out into the 4th inning. And they pulled him last night an inning and 2/3 in. And he didn't look right. He didn't look right the last start either. His mechanics look flawed, et cetera. So I'm not going to condemn Mike Schilt. I just think it was a bad decision when you had somebody else there, or you could have flipped that game. If Perez didn't do well, you could have flipped that into a bullpen game because you got strength in numbers, and then you'd have a fully rested Cease and a fully rested Darvish to make a choice to start the second round. So I think it was a mistake. John, do you think it's fatal?
No. I mean, the Padres are still in this thing. I think they can win Friday night. But imagine if Schilt had started Perez. I mean, if it didn't go well, people would be second-guessing him. What the hell? Why are you bringing in this guy as like a number 6, number 7 starter when you have a dude that threw a no-hitter earlier this year? So Schilt couldn't win on either case. But you know what I want to comment on is I really appreciated John Smoltz talking about how difficult it is to come back one day early. And he said how the velocity will be there, but the location and the command won't necessarily be there. And that's exactly what we saw from Dylan Cease.
Exactly. And that's what we saw the prior start from Dylan Cease when he threw 82 pitches in 3+ innings, and I had to go take him off the mound. Smoltz is brilliant, but then he's an intellect. He tells you more about pitching than just statistics. He tells you the rationale. He tells you about the psyche. He tells you about the physical wear and tear. I think he was the best in the business. John, next one. Go ahead on Fans Forum.
Okay, let's go to David. The Dodgers have been doing a bullpen game all season long. They had 17 different pitchers start a game in 2023 and 2024 seasons. Padres got schooled Wednesday by a superior all-around team.
But the Padres are a complete team. And please, with excuses, move to the side. That Dodger win only counts as 1 win. There is a game to be played on Friday, and at Dodger Stadium, in front of 53,000 Looney Tune LA fans. But the Padres don't get bullied. Padres are not scared of the Dodgers. Padres just have to produce. But it is odd to me that the collection of 8 pitchers who did the bullpen game against the Padres last night, in the 4-game series, Padres are hitting 165 against those 8 guys. So now the question for Dave Roberts and the analytics guys at Dodger Stadium, do you go back to those 8 guys in a bullpen day? Because none of them had stressful innings. There was nobody out there throwing 33 pitches in one inning. They buzzed through that batting order. So do you go to Yamamoto and Flaherty as the backup, or do you go bullpen day again? That's a tough call. John, if you could pick up the phone, I gave you Dave Roberts' cell phone number, what would you call and advise him?
Like I said earlier, I think you start Yamamoto and you see how far he goes. You have a short leash. Maybe your expectation is only a couple of innings out of Yamamoto, and that might work. But I'm curious to find out when they go back to Chavez Ravine, do you think the fans are going to be a little more well-behaved?
I think the Dodgers are going to mandate it. But then again, you never know how much you're drinking before you go to the game, John. So I don't know how you're going to act sitting out in the right field pavilion with all those other fans. But I think they'll be toned down. Now the question is, Profar, Tatis, they can be jumping up and down, dancing like a peacock. How's Machado going to respond? I'm just blown away by the fact that Ken Rosenthal would write that at this point when those 2 guys, the ones he's referencing, actually all 3, are the reason this team has done so well. To pull out all the stuff about Manny being Manny back in Baltimore. Obviously, I'm not Johnny Hustle when he was with the Dodgers, and the guy that acted like a punk when he first got to San Diego. For him to dredge up all that stuff at this point makes no sense at all, because the freaking Padres, second best road record in baseball. Padres, look at what they've accomplished at home. None of that is relevant to the series. That just boggles my mind.
That was a really weak take by Rosenthal. And, a lot of these national media guys, they always kind of glom on to the Dodgers and the Yankees and the Red Sox. And the Padres are the more interesting team, the more interesting story, the more interesting history on all of this. So I know I just thought that was a bunch of BS, but it's going to be great. Game 5, man, I'm going to be fired up and ready to go. I saw someone post on Twitter today that Game 5 on Friday will either be one of the best or one of the worst days in Padre history.
Well, the sun can shine or it could rain. John, it could be one or the other, or it could be both. Roger David, thank you for joining us on Fans Forum. Next topic.
Okay, let's go to Greg. Lee, what is the NFL thinking? Scheduling the Seahawks with 3 games over 13 days? They played last Monday night, then the following Sunday, and now tonight? Not a great way to promote player safety.
Well, everybody kind of gets caught in that quandary. Because if you're into a Thursday night thing, you're going to get some rest on the back end of the Thursday night game, but you'll have to play some extra games, and travel's got something to do with it. There's no perfect solution to the scheduling around the National Football League. I mean, there's some teams that play 3 straight road games. You say, why the hell's that happen? And that's really hard. And you got, teams that play 5 of their first 7 on the road. I mean, how fair or unfair is that? I would tend to think there's got to be a better way to balance a schedule to make it fair as much as you can for everybody. But yeah, Seahawks have the same scenario that other teams have had in recent years too. And this whole Thursday night scheduling thing is part of that trigger point.
Yeah, and then the Seahawks have to travel probably a lot more than most NFL teams. So, but they'll never get the schedule just right because that's really hard. I remember like 10 years ago, I had to create a schedule for our Little League here in Poway. That is difficult to do, and they have like software programs that'll help you kind of figure it all out. But with stadiums and Taylor Swift concerts and everything else, that's a challenge. But I don't know. For me, I like Thursday night football. We got a Monday night, Thursday night. Bring it on. It's all good.
Yeah. And then you add in the equation, trips abroad, or they're going to Mexico City, or London, or they're going to Spain. And, the NFL is growing the international venues at the same time. Greg, thank you for the question. John, next one.
Okay, let's go to Michael. Lee, with Ohio State visiting Oregon this weekend, do you believe that they have enough to leave with a win?
Pretty good defense. Very physical offensive line. Will Howard is a quarterback that's not a sexy name in terms of being a star, but that guy was a starter and rewrote the record book at Kansas State, and he's just been very, what's the word I'm looking for, efficient Does not turn the ball over, throws touchdown passes. He runs the Buckeye defense, or runs the Buckeye offense. I think Ohio State's going to come in and try to play power ball. I think they're going to try to keep Dillon Gabriel off the field. And again, talking about the Oregon situation, now they lost so many players off last year's team, in addition to Bo Nix, that they just don't seem to be the same offense in terms of pizzazz and explosiveness. That, or maybe they're laying in the weeds, and maybe we're going to see some stuff that Dillon Gabriel has not displayed so far in this game against the Buckeyes. But I interact with a couple of media guys in the Pacific Northwest, and they're going crazy. And we've seen so many upsets in the last 3 weeks of the college football season that one of the big boys is going to lose. We saw what Bama did to Georgia. Holy cow. Then we saw what happened last week, and the polls got turned upside down, and they could all get turned upside down again because we got 3 marquee games on this weekend schedule. John?
So I'll bet you, man, the Oregon fans are showing up at Autzen Stadium. It's going to be just a great vibe. And I love this idea of these Big Ten teams coming to the West Coast, and they're the ones that have to do all the traveling. This is going to be a great game. I mean, Dillon Gabriel, I watched him a lot at Oklahoma. He's a dynamic quarterback, but he's not an explosive quarterback. So hopefully he's got a lot of guys running around, on his side of the squad that can make plays. The other thing about Oregon that I always enjoy is to figure out what uniform they're going to wear. So that's always a fun part of this. What's your take on the Ohio State coach? Wasn't he in a little bit of trouble or a little bit of jeopardy in losing his gig?
Well, Ryan Day, there's a big issue here of Harbaugh kicked your ass. You got a problem. But he's still there. And they are Ohio State. And they go get all the recruits they want. And they do some very good stuff within the transfer portal. And people, I think, have given him a little bit more space. There was a lot of consternation about his play calling, because of what happened against the school up north, as Woody Hayes used to refer to Michigan in the Bo Schembechler days, and the fact that Harbaugh had their number. But he's got a pretty good team. So, no, I don't think Ryan Day's in any real jeopardy. And Michigan's not Michigan right now, not at least as it was under the Harbaugh era. So the Buckeyes, they win that game, and the world is beautiful. Next question, John.
Next question. All right, let's go to Chris. Saw and the left fielder. Please explain what qualifications Antonio Pierce has to be head coach. Other than screaming Raiders and after their rare wins, the guy brings nothing to the table. He's a teenager on social media and has basically been banned for a decade in college football. Great bleeping hire. P.S. Cease's enormous mustache is now actively working against him.
Well, Antonio Pierce was a really good linebacker. Giants, New England, intellect, fireball personality, came in and tried to rally the team in the chaos that Mark Davis had allowed to happen with all the mishirings of head coaches. Players liked him. But at the end of the day, they've never solved the quarterback issue. That's item 1. They let Josh Jacobs go. That's item 2. Now they got an unhappy Devontae Adams. That's item 3. Their offensive line is banged up. Now they've lost Christian Wilkins. He's gone. He's just had surgery on his knee. He's going to be out for maybe 4 weeks, 6 weeks. Max Crosby's playing on a lame knee. They lost 2 defensive ends on the other side of Max Crosby. I mean, they're just a mess. And they're a mess at quarterback. So they sat Gardner Minshew down. Aiden O'Connell is better, doesn't make as many mistakes, but they don't score a lot of touchdowns with even him as quarterback, and I don't know if they're going to be able to protect him. So they're just a disaster. And there's no doubt that Antonio Pierce is always doing this all the time, yappy, yappy, yap. And he's on social media, and he's got all kinds of problems. And by the way, the general manager is stoic. He's an Ivy League type guy. This guy, the coach, he's a street guy. And yeah, he's the one that got Arizona State in trouble with all the NCAA violations, just got suspended for 8 years, all-time record NCAA sanction against a coach. So I don't know. If they don't turn the corner, Mark Davis has to eat the contract. What Mark Davis needs to do is stop making bad decisions, let that new general manager who came from the Chargers fix this thing. But you can't fix it overnight because They still don't have legitimacy at quarterback. And now they got a black hole in the black hole at running back. And you might have a black hole at wide receiver because Devontae Adams wants out. So his story is not done, but boy, there's a lot of trouble spots, a lot of places, John.
Yeah, it's funny. When Antonio Pierce was there, he had that interim tag for a while, but the players really rallied to bring him on board as permanent. But did the Raiders consider any other alternatives for head coach?
No, and a lot of people of the opinion they should not have even hired Pierce. They should have just stayed with the special teams coordinator who had been the last interim head coach, and the players responded to via Rich Biasuccia. But he didn't have a lot of experience, and so they went a different direction. Now Antonio Pierce is the guy, and if they don't fix this, I don't think Antonio Pierce survives. And I don't care what the Raider Nation has to say. Your record is what your record is. And I got 2 winning seasons in the last 21 years. I'm not trying to pile on Raider fan. I'm just telling you the terminology I use, silver and bleak, fits perfectly.
That's brutal. 2 winning seasons in this century?
21 years.
That's insane. I mean, unbelievable. Let's keep moving here. Let's go to Javi. And he says, Hacksaw, you said all these negatives about the Dodgers and how the Padres looked amazing and they got blown out. Be ready for a rough Friday.
Javi, last I checked, the Padre win at Dodger Stadium, guys jumping up and down, the peacock doing his dance. That only counted as 1 win. Dodger win, Petco Park, last I checked, that only counts as 1 win. Game 5, Friday, baby. We'll just see where it goes. It's great for the rivalry. It's great for history. I think the aura of Dodger-Padre baseball is now permanently changed because of what this franchise in San Diego has become. I take nothing away from the great accomplishments of Dodger baseball. I mean, from the O'Malley era to the Mark Walter group led by Friedman, that's a tremendous track record of success. And yeah, I know you could yell, big market, $290 million payroll, they draw $4 million, et cetera. You still got to develop them. And for them to still be playing with the trauma, with the pitching staff, and that mess with all the surgeries. But at the end of the day, that Padre win with the jumping jack, Jurickson Profar in left field only counted as 1 win. And last night's bomb job only counted as 1 win for the Dodgers. Bring on Game 5.
Bring it on. Yeah, it's funny. Profar almost caught the identical home run ball from Betts. But, it's funny is on Instagram, the video that you did, it's titled Head Games. It's got a picture of Machado and Dave Roberts. You should have seen the reaction. And there's like hundreds of comments. There's over 30,000 views on that video. And after Game 3, Dodger fan was like, season's over. Let's wrap it up. Dave Roberts can't win in the playoffs. Then they win 8-0, and now suddenly Dodger fan thinks they're going to win Game 5 and keep on moving. So emotionally, it's a roller coaster. We're up, we're down, we're sideways.
Here's a wild card thought. The World Series winner might come out of this series. Because if you look at what's happened every place else, the Phillies are gone. And last week, I swore to you that somebody was going to have to go through Citizens Bank Ballpark to get to the World Series, and they're gone. I don't think the Mets scare the hell out of a lot of people, but the Mets are playing really well right now. And on the other side of the street, Cleveland's in big jeopardy, and the Yankees don't appear to be the Yankees. John, the World Series winner might come out of Game 5 on Friday night. It might be the winner of the Padres-Dodger series is the one that's going to wind up with a ring when all is said and done. I mean, that's what Swami says, looking into my crystal ball, that could happen. And Riley says?
Swami. Makes me think of Chris Berman or Johnny Carson. If the Padres are victorious on Friday, they're going to have home field advantage for the NLCS. And they could, imagine if the Yankees or the Guardians got knocked off. The Padres, dream scenario, stars aligned, they could have home field advantage for the World Series too. So the unpredictability in the playoffs is just so fun and exciting. This is the best time of the year.
We move on. Next one, Fans Forum. Go ahead.
Let's go to Callan. Hey, Lee, would you consider a tweak to the MLB playoff format if the top seeds continue to flame out in the divisional series? I've pondered a 7-team bracket for each league or an 8-team bracket. Thoughts?
Well, everybody talks about what if. Hey, you got something that works right now. Now, granted, they fine-tuned. I mean, the wild card used to be best of 1. Everybody thought that was really unfair, so they made it best of 3. And then there was a lot of beef. And while the best teams are sitting there idle for 4 days, I don't think they're idle. I think they take a deep breath and get their guys healthy, especially their pitching staff. But I don't want to see the whole world in the playoffs because I don't want to see mismatches. I want to see the best. That's why you grind through 162 games. So, there's also been talk, maybe we should reseed. Well, I don't know if you want to do that either. Just leave it the way it is. Enjoy the baseball because this has been special.
Yeah, I mean, this is great. I mean, the whole thing is fantastic. If they hypothetically expanded it, a little bit more so there were no buys in the first round, so what would that be? 8 teams on each side? That'd be fine. If the way it's now, that's good too. It's better than when it used to only, be just the 2 championship series or even just the 1 wild card. So I love it. The more that we can get going, it's great. But the problem is that you don't want to let these series drift into November. You got to get business wrapped up before Halloween.
Yeah, and you got baseball in some cold weather cities. I mean, you don't want snow flurries. You don't want snow outs. That's the risk you get. My alternative would be let's cut the regular season from 162 down to 154 because the wear and tear factors on players, notably pitchers, is so extreme. But you got owners. You think owner wants to give up any home games at all with the volume of money they're making on gate receipts and TV contracts? I don't think we're ever going to go from 162 down to back to 154, which means you could start the playoffs a little bit earlier. You surely don't want to be playing playoff games in Chicago or Boston in late October. Hell, it's 33 degrees outside my window here at my cottage in the Adirondacks, and I don't have many fans. Well, maybe fans will get liquored up. They could sit for 9 innings in this type of cold weather, but you don't want that in Chicago or Boston or some of these other cold weather places. Next one, Fans Forum.
Next one. Okay, let's go here. Talking about a 162 game season. Let's go to Di. He said, they say 162 regular doesn't mean anything. Then why have it? Just have a postseason.
Well, 162 is all about gate receipts, TV contracts. The more you play, the more on TV, you're televising more of my games, I get paid. So that's why it's 162. Union can carry some clout into this. I mean, I walked in that clubhouse. I've seen those guys at game 140, 150. I mean, they are on their knees and they're so beat up. It is such a grind. And with the pitching injury situation, it's really, really severe. So baseball should look at it. I think there has been discussion, but have not made any move at all to change any of that structure of postseason play except add on. And I don't want to invite everybody to the postseason party because I think it waters down everything you're trying to do in terms of quality.
Yeah. I mean, you got to maintain some quality. But I mean, it's funny that Di brings up an idea of just scrapping the regular season and just having a tournament. So you can't do it all. You can't have the long season, make all the money, all the revenue, all the games, and then still have a season that makes sense and a playoffs that are expanded. Something's got to give here. Back to a 154 would be fine. I just think that when I was a kid and these guys were like, feeling tired playing ball. And I'm like, how in the hell can you be tired? You're in your 20s. You're playing the greatest game on earth that everyone else would give their left arm to play. And you want to sit because you've got a tweaked ankle? Get out there. Hey, speaking of tweaked ankles, is Freddie Freeman going to play on Friday?
No decision yet. I mean, he's under intense round-the-clock therapy. The fact that he's dinged this thing twice really worries him. But they've got multiple guys, multiple positions, and they'll just make this determination, I am sure, after he goes through pregame batting practice as to whether it go. If you're asking me, he's such a warrior. I think he'll come back out and he'll give it a go on Friday night.
Well, check out this take here from 4RXLA. He says, the LA clubhouse has turned on Roberts. It was visible when Ohtani got 50-50 in Miami and when they clinched, and Buehler. Robert talks, but players don't listen.
Well, I think sometimes guys are real competitive. I'm a big believer in body language. And when you looked at that playoff game, Michael King versus Buehler, both those guys are so stressed out. And Buehler was so pissed about what happened when the Dodgers twice failed to turn double play balls. And that I saw a clip, and I don't know if it was on TV very much. I saw a clip of him throwing that tantrum in the dugout. I mean, he was screaming at guys, and he was throwing equipment all over the place. And then Mark Pryor settled him down. Maybe that's what he needed, because he came back out with fire in his belly, and he pitched really, really well. And then at the end, in his final inning, when it looked like he was starting to give ground, the Padres, I think, had 2 guys on, and Dave Roberts walked out of the dugout. And that manager does not come out unless you're going to pull him. And I kind of lip read, and I think Buehler made some comment to the statement, "Get the F off my mound, I'm finishing this." And he did. And he got out with no more runs scored. So, Buehler's tantrum fueled Buehler, sent a different message, because the Dodgers really played defensively on the edge in that 8-0 win on Wednesday night. Guys need things to, hit their hot button. And Buehler, watching his defense play crap, he just lit into them, and it kind of fired him up. And he's such a fierce guy. And I'll tell you what, after that bad inning that he had, that was vintage Walker Buehler. He has not been able to bottle that on a start-by-start basis, but that was pretty impressive.
Imagine having a rough day on the job in the office and then picking up trash cans and throwing them around. Baseball is like one of the few sports or few jobs you can get away with that. But, is the team turning on Roberts? I mean, obviously Roberts was pushing all the right buttons in Game 4. I mean, that seemed to be working pretty well. But I don't know, Buehler, I had great respect for him originally before he got hurt. I mean, because he was so dynamic. That fastball had like a 6th gear that it would kick in with all that spin. He's not the same as he used to be, but he did get screwed in that inning. Speaking of which, Miguel Rojas, is he going to play, or is he hurt now?
He's got something tantamount to a groin injury, and his mobility is just not the same. And, he screwed up what should have been a double play ball. They should have been out of that inning. And instead, Lux screwed up, Rojas screwed up, and next thing you know, Buehler's given up all these runs, and it was just a bad situation. By the way, we never touched on this, and I should have touched on this in the opening segment about the Padres. You mean to tell me with six umpires, you mean to tell me with the Dodgers watching this, or Freddie Freeman observing this, Machado ran out of the baseline, got hit with a ball that, turned into a big rally? Nobody saw that? I didn't see it till later in the evening. And I said, how is he not called out? He ran out of the baselines. And none of the umpires huddled? That's kind of weird. Did you see that, or were you just too busy waving a Padre pom-pom?
Well, no, when that happened, I saw him, kind of make a left turn there and go into the infield grass. And all I kept thinking was, Manny Machado has got baseball IQ, up through the roof. That was a great play. And even Freddie Freeman said he would have done the same thing, and how Machado, apparently Buck Showalter has been teaching him, and even Rob Macias for the Padres teaches that in spring training. So I thought it was a great play. But the play that the umpires clearly blew wasn't in that series. It was the Phillies Mets. I think Alec Boehm had a ball that went right over the first base bag, and they called it foul. Did you see that one?
No, I didn't.
So, you figure, like, to your point, there's 6 umpires on there. You think they could get it right. And it is interesting in the play where the ball, hit the umpire that Machado retrieved and was able to throw it. Sometimes the umpire is in play and sometimes they're not in play. And I'm not sure if I fully understand those rules.
I thought if it hit the umpire, dead ball. But because it ricocheted off Machado, live baseball. So it hit the umpire. Manny picked it up. He made a hell of a throw off balance. I thought he was going to throw it down the right field line. Hell of a play. All right, John, let's go from that. Let's go to social media. I'm sure we got some people who have written us with some opinions.
Oh, my God. Yeah. So let's go to social media here. And let's talk a little bit about the Rams. And this is from Tony. He says, their season is over. Look, I don't care, but they beat the 49ers.
Well, they did, but at the end of the day, it's a 17-game schedule, and this is the worst start that Sean McVay has ever had, sitting there at 1-4, and there's no way out of the situation. He's got all these offensive linemen hurt. He still does not have Cooper Kupp. He does not have Nakua. He does not have his tight end, Tyler Higbee, and Matthew Stafford's starting to take a lot of shots, starting to take a lot of hits. So the next question is there a hit coming that's going to put him on the ground permanently? Because he's courageous. He's a great, great leader. It's just tough. You can control a lot of things. You control the salary cap. You can control roster cuts. You can control what you're calling, but you can't control injuries. And they never got out of preseason camp healthy. So I think it's going to turn out to be a bad season. I just don't want to see Stafford get hurt because he is a warrior. He'll stand in there. He'll make plays and have to pay a physical price. And he's starting to get too many hits.
I'm always just amazed at Sean McVay because he's so young. I mean, he's still in his 30s, isn't he?
Yes.
I mean, that's remarkable to me. But another team in the NFC West, the Arizona Cardinals, I mean, they beat the Niners. I mean, do you think they're on the come?
I think they are, and they're about to get one of their other wide receivers back to join Marvin Harrison and James Conner and Kyler Murray. But, as hot as they were a couple weeks ago, they didn't play real well this past week, and they got beat. So I'm not quite sure where they are as a complete football team. But Kyler Murray, with skilled people around him, he does make things happen. Okay, let's go to the next question.
Next question. Okay, let's go here. More Dodgers Padres. And this is from Paul Taylor Law. You know how to market with controversy. I like it. Friday will be rebuke or redemption for Dodger fans. Ha ha.
Well, Dodger fan, got to show me better deportment than you showed me. Now, Dodger fan will also email me through my website and say, hey, Profar is the one that instigated all this with the jumping jack thing. And Tatis doing his dance in the outfield and making an obscene gesture towards Dodger fan. They both got to concentrate, play baseball, and stay classy. But I'll tell you what, the managers diffused the whole thing, the whole Manny Machado throwing the ball towards the dugout. That Dave Roberts did a good job diffusing that. Schilt diffused it. Got to get back to baseball. And, Jack Flaherty did not throw at Tatis. He was all over the strike zone, and his stuff is wicked. He did plunk him, but I don't think it was intentional. I mean, you're in a close playoff game. You're not going to throw at Tatis. You might throw at Tatis in the eighth inning if you're getting beat 8-0, but why would you ever do that? Because now you create a mess for the next game. And for Machado to say, hey, we're not throwing at Ohtani, why are you throwing at my guy? So, but that's gone. It's good for the rivalry, but it's gone.
It's funny is there's a lot of people on social media that'll say, from that video, the Head Games video, they said, oh, that's going to trigger some Dodger fans, So it's like you're like a sports talk pro. You know how to kind of, stir the pot and get people commenting on different things. It's going to be a great Game 5. I cannot wait.
Okay, move on. A couple more social media smacks.
Smack. Okay, here, let's go to say, what does it say? Sejas Diner. Hey, Hacksaw, admire what the home team Padres is doing, but move on from the Dodgers. Let it go. Please stop reminding your fans of what might have been.
Moving on from the Chargers. But there's a lot of NFL fans who follow us. And I cover the NFL like I cover Major League Baseball. John, you put that slide up there of the babe. We got so many responses from that. My short commentary on that. I think a lot of people thought that might have been porn, and that's why they're hitting the red button there. But, hey, you got to cover the NFL. I mean, NFL is where it's at in terms of TV viewership, et cetera. And we do have a lot of followers who like the NFL and follow the Chargers, and some love them and love Herbert, and a lot of them hate Spanos, and we're just going to continue to cover the storylines like we cover everybody else, including the firing of the Jets coach and what might happen with Jerry Jones in Dallas and all teams. That's what we got to do.
It's funny how people blur the lines with you. Are you a Charger fan? Are you a journalist? I mean, imagine if somebody on the NFL Today on CBS said, I'm not covering the Chargers anymore because they moved. That would be ridiculous. So you're still covering them. So that's good. I mean, because they're a Southern California team. We cover them. But that particular point you made in the video was right on target. Dean Spano screwed up leaving this community because there's clearly a passionate sports fan base that would be there for the Chargers if they're winning.
Well, that's what I said. My first reaction after the triple play by Machado against who? The Dodgers. End result, playoffs. And by the way, it was a triple play. And you see the community go crazy. And so that was the first thought after all the joy about what the Padres just accomplished against that rival. My first thought after, Spanos turned his back on this because the Chargers own the community emotionally. And he turned his back on this to go be on the periphery in Los Angeles where nobody's paying any attention. And are there Charger fans? Sure, there's Charger fans up there. Charger fans down here? Sure. Now, a lot of them might be hate watching rather than watching for success. So it's absolutely amazing. Next one.
Well, I just want to get this comment here. It just came in at the very end from the O-Siders. He goes, this is the reason why I listen to this and not 97.3. Thanks for covering the Chargers still.
Bingo. We do sports talk the way it should be done. And now it's on a podcast that you can see on live stream. And it's on a podcast that is up there forever. You can always go back. You can't be with us because you're at work. Hey, quit the freaking job, so watch this thing live. But you can't be with us at work. When you get home, you can punch it up at 5 p.m. or at 10 p.m. or the next day because it's always going to be there.
Check this one out. This is from Angel. Amen, Hacksaw. We don't want guy talk or stuff about the parlay and over-under. We want sports talk radio the way it should be.
It is, and that's why we do it, and that's why it's been a success. And I'm still trying to convince John, once we have our Hacksaw Insiders group meet together at a bar, John's going to buy everybody a shot of bourbon.
I'll definitely do that. Yeah, as long as you're going, down at firefighter, as long as you're doing it too.
Okay, one more.
One more. Okay, let's talk about Dave Roberts. This is a little bit of a long one from Dave Ferry. Respectfully, he is overrated. 2016 choked against the Cubs. 2017 asterisks, but consistently going to Blanton in the World Series and taking Alex Wood out early. 2018 was just pure dominance by the Red Sox. 2019, we got embarrassed by the Nationals, and Roberts left in an already tired Kershaw out for back-to-back bombs, then brought in Wild Joe Kelly, who gave up a grand slam. 2020 is the only ring, and he almost choked. 2021 was his only excusable season with a tired roster going against the juggernaut Braves. 2022 was even more embarrassing by the Padres. 2023 against the D-backs sweeping us. Dave Roberts.
That's history. That really is. And the facts are the facts. He checked off all the boxes about all the mistakes that Dave Roberts has made. And I really thought, John, in my heart, that had they lost last night, had they gotten run out, that would have been the fourth straight year they got knocked out in the first round. I think Roberts would have lost his job. But because they are the Dodgers, and this is a really good roster, they found a way to win. And if they eliminate the Padres, his job is safe. If they lose to the Padres, depending how they lose, if you lose 2-1 in the 12th inning, that's different than losing 9-0 at home. Job might be in jeopardy. But at the end of the day, he's managed them into first place, and they won the division again with the whole world on the disabled list. I mean, I was in a pub up here in upstate New York, and I was talking to Mets fans. I've been surrounded by Yankee and Met fans for the whole week. Just, I'm not going to say unbearable, but passionate. And they were asking me about the Dodgers and Roberts. I mean, these are fanatical people. And I just said, I'm going to give you these set of statistics that I had talked about on my podcast. They've used 38 pitchers, and they've had, 12 different starting pitchers, and they've had 19 pitchers on the disabled list and 7 season-ending injuries. And they have one guy. They have one guy on the rotation. It was their opening day, Yamamoto. And by the way, they're still in first place. And by the way, they're going to play in this final game in the divisional series. I said, that's pretty interesting stuff to understand how really good organizationally they are through all this adversity with all these pitching staffs. But that being said, it'll be fascinating if they don't go move on. They don't play in the NLCS to see what happens. Hey, listen, we hope you have enjoyed this extended version of our Great Sports Weekend Thursday podcast. This podcast is brought to you by DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Centers. 9 stores to serve you in San Diego. If you've got projects, you need these guys for materials, these guys for ideas. They are great business people. DIXIELINE Lumber. John, take a deep breath. Sub sandwiches, cold beer, Friday night baseball. This is going to be fun. I hope you have yourself a great sports weekend.
It's going to be great. I'm worried about Mookie Betts. He's finally discovered how to hit again. This could be trouble for the Padres.
It's going to be a good game, and that's why they're going to play it. And one game has nothing to do with the next game. And we thank you for joining us on our Thursday podcast. Hacksaw's headlines. Have a great sports weekend. We'll see you Monday. Monday bonus time will be on 1 o'clock Pacific. As always, great to have you part of our team. Thanks for being with us.
Join us again for Hacksaw's Headlines on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And find the audio version on your favorite podcast apps. For more content, go to LeeHacksawHamilton.com.